functional, and we wouldn't see them as much. The problem with kiddos that are hemiplegic is, and those are typically kids that have a stroke in utero. That is typically what happens. They have a stroke in utero, either close to the time of delivering, during delivery, or just prior to delivering. Also, kiddos can end up with hemiplegia from some type of an injury after they're born when the brain is still immature. But when one side is affected, typically what happens is that child learns very quickly that they are very functional with the other side. And so an awful lot of times this side just kind of gets left behind because they know they can do whatever they need to do with this side. So your main function working with that child would be to incorporate all four sides together. Climbing the ladders on the playground equipment. Any kind of activities where they have to use all four. Working in a quadruped position, shifting weight, getting them on all fours and having them come forward on their hands, come all the way back on their knees, going from side to side and doing those kinds of shifts. Reaching for something, lifting up this extremity, then this one, then each of the legs and holding it, and then lifting up diagonals. So the left arm and the left, or the right leg, and then the right arm and the left leg. Lifting up diagonals and holding those as well. So trying to incorporate the left and right sides together so that both sides are working together. Typically, patients that are affected on one side have good enough balance, they're able to walk, they're able to run. The problem is they're very frequently walking on their toes. And so over time, you end up getting some problems. You can actually end up with a scoliosis because that individual is walking like this. So you try to get a more normalized gait. Could be that they need an AFO. But you try to do activities where you're really emphasizing walking on the heels. A real good thing to emphasize walking on the heels is to do giant steps. Because when you do giant steps, typically you start out on your heels. So that's just a little trick. Spastic diplegia. These children end up being very able as well. Typically what they are involved with is that they have weakness in their paraspinals in the lower part of their trunk. And typically the rest of the trunk is okay. Their arms are okay. They're very functional. They can write, they can read, they can learn, but their lower extremities are affected. And very often what you see is this. And why would they do this?
Stability. Yep.
They can stabilize. They bring both of their thighs in and meet at the knees. They can stabilize. So they got a wide base of support, and this is the way that they want to function.
And they
got to get them out of that.
They W sit.
Mm-hmm.
They W sit severely.
They definitely W sit because, well, anybody that's going to have some trouble with their trunk, they're going to tend to want to W sit too.
Yeah.
But individuals that have diplegia very frequently will bring the upper part inward and be in kind of a crouch gait walking. So you want to try to break that up however you can. So you want to really work on strengthening the hip abductors. And really get to the point where you can do some resistive exercise with those. And make sure that they stay stretched because typically they're going to be real tight in those adductor muscles because that's the way they're going to be positioning all the time. And those are really the big things. And trying to move them up, they might start in a gait training device where they're half sitting down most of the time. You want to try to get that device lesser and lesser so that they're walking with just as minimal amount of assist as possible in terms of a device. So they're not as complicated. Spastic quads. Usually it's not all four extremities equally affected. It could be more one side than the other. It could be that three are affected and that patient is fairly capable with, typically it's the upper extremity. And those are the individuals who tend to use that for ADLs, for feeding, for driving their power chair. And so they're getting enough use out of that arm so that it still stays pretty functional. But those individuals are typically much more involved. They're usually in a chair. We learned about the can-do ratings, grades 1 through 5, and so that would be a good thing to review for this, because probably your scenario will tell you where they are in terms of being a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But activities to work on with children have to be fun, and bring some stickers, bring some M&Ms, works, and just work on anything that child needs to work on. If the head's real droopy, think about where they are in that developmental sequence. Do they have sitting control? Can they sit on a mat table and not fall over? Can they keep their balance? If they can, then they're at least at the 6-month level in terms of their motor capabilities. So what else can they get into a quadruped position? Can they get up into tall kneeling? Where are they in that developmental sequence? What are they able to do? And what they're not able to do, then you bring them back to that point and work on that ground up that we talked about yesterday. You start at where they need to be working and work your way up. So don't yank that person out of the chair and just walk them, sit them back down in the chair and keep going. Just try to address what their needs are. So if they don't even have head control, what you want to do is definitely spend some time with the treatment, working on their head control. And anything you can do to make it fun is a good thing. Playing music, making weird sounds. Kids love it when you make weird sounds. Make weird faces. Pretend to trip. I mean, if they think that you're going to get hurt or something, that's hilarious to them. Just sort of be a little bit of a clown. And you're going to find that with children and with adults too, and you probably already found this, you sometimes change your personality 7 or 8 times a day, do you not? You're different with one person, and then the very next, you're very soft with one person, and you pat them on the shoulder, and then the next person is like, you say you're doing your exercises, you are not doing clearly, you are not doing your exercise. Do you want to get better, or don't you want to get better? So, different things work for different people, and you will definitely find that out. If you're the same for everybody all day long, you're going to be effective with some, but you're not going to be with others. So you need to figure out what it is that patient needs. And if they need you to be real hard-nosed, you have to be hard-nosed. Like Anne Marie, I told you about Anne Marie, the spinal cord patient. And then a student in the first year class says she's working at Baptist now. I said, you are kidding me. Anne Marie is that, and he says, I'm sure that's who you're talking about. And her name is Anne Marie. And I said, what does she look like? He says, well, she has a New York accent. Yes. Well, she's short. She's kind of, yes. She's very, very friendly. So it's got to be Anne Marie. So I almost feel like going over there. She wouldn't know me from Adam, but I sure do remember her. She's a great therapist. So that's pretty much it for, so what do? Have you ever seen that Connect 4 game?
Yep. We'll have that.
Head control, you have them on their, in a prone prop. Have them do their Connect 4. You don't need to play the game. You just need to get them to put the checkers in there. So, we'll use your right hand first. I want you to load the checkers up in there. Okay. Set it a little bit farther away. They have to reach farther. Just use your imagination with this stuff.
I feel like your imagination will probably grow as you continue to
It does grow.
do stuff.
It does grow. And a lot of times the kids come up with their own activities.
Oh yeah, I noticed that yesterday whenever I went to go work with Debbie, or before Debbie, she was there. I had a girl who was in 4th grade, and we were working on the ladder, like doing agility stuff on the ladder, and she just started doing like this really weird, because she couldn't get the other pattern down. She started doing something weird. I said, okay, you just keep doing that, because it looks like it's working.
That's right. They can come up with their own stuff, which is really, really great. So trying to use your creativity, think what it is, I've got to get head control. So that means to get head control, I need them to be able to flex. I need them to be able to extend so that when they're sitting up, their head is in a neutral position. So what are activities that I can do prone that's gonna keep their head up and keep their attention, so that we can work on this. And what is it that I can do where they have to, bend over and reach? And so just come up with, there's an endless number of activities that you can come up with. So with CP, with any kind of diagnosis like that, what you're looking at is where are they in the developmental sequence? Where do things kind of stop with this kid? Where are their limitations? And then you go back there and you start addressing those things. You address other things as well too. If they're walking with a gait trainer, that's fine. If they've got a therapeutic trike, that's fine. If you can get them in the water, that's fine. But go back to where that developmental sequence kind of stopped and address those activities. And you really can. Usually the progress, it takes longer of a length of time, but usually you can make some nice progress with these children. Okay. Head injuries.